Hey Fae folk, welcome and welcome back. So for today's video, we're doing something a little bit different. We've never done anything like this on the channel, and I am so hype, and I'm hoping that you guys are really gonna have fun with this as well. So I'm dubbing this Monster High Hypotheticals, and this idea kind of came from two places. There is a content creator here on YouTube. Her name is Haley Whipjack. I love her videos. I think they're so fun, and some of my favorite ones that she does are her Baldur's Gate character ranking videos. Not in like a typical ranking sense, like the rankings that I do for like different doll lines, but really just silly rankings. And her latest one, I think one of the rankings was who out of like the Baldur's Gate companions is most to least likely going to return their shopping cart to like the place it's supposed to go back to, and who's going to just like leave it in the way. And it's just like, it's so silly and so funny and just a fun little thought exercise. And I really enjoy those. And it's actually something that I already kind of do with my husband just for kicks. Usually, because we're both big My Hero fans, we'll talk about like My Hero Academia hypotheticals and be like, oh, who do you think out of class A is most likely to do this or that or the other? And it's just like something that I find really enjoyable. I don't know why it's so fun to me, but it really is. And so I thought, why not try to do the same thing with Monster High? So that is what we are going to be doing today. I have several different categories of like, some are rankings and some are just like hypothetical questions. You will see as we go along, but I have several to get through today because I like couldn't stop myself. I did ask you guys for some ideas, and so some of those may have made it into the video. We'll see. But yeah, I'm so hyped. Like, I'm so excited to do this. Please do let me know in the comments if you have fun with this, because I'm more than happy to do another. Like, I'm sure I could do a whole huge series of these. But yeah, I hope that that kind of makes sense and you kind of understand what we're going for. But if not, I promise you will understand as we go through the course of this video. Like, it will make sense to you. I'll have helpful little graphics on the side where they're handy. But without further ado, let's just jump into the first little hypothetical. Alrighty, so for our characters today, I am using the like core cast of G3 just because that's like the current Monster High generation. So we have Draculaura, Claudine, Cleo, Frankie, Laguna, and then also Claude playing the game here today. Just because like I feel like I've usually thought of Deuce as like the main Manster back from like Generation 1, but in G3, at least the first season, because I haven't seen any of the second season so far.
Speaking of which, minor spoiler alert for the entire video.
I feel like we've seen so much more of Claude's character, so I felt like he was a better person to include in this little thought exercise. So the first category that is a ranking that we're going to be taking a look at is like how I would fare with them in a fight. So sixth place, which is where we're going to be starting, is the person I think I would be most likely to beat in a fight. And then first place is the person that I know I could never beat in a fight. Now, I do want to say, I don't necessarily really deeply believe I would beat any of these characters in a fight because they're all monsters with special powers and I'm an unfit and unhealthy human being. But that being said, this is all for fun. This is all hypothetical. So the character that I think I'm most likely to be able to beat in a fight is Cleo. Specifically, I think that as long as I had the element of surprise on my hands, I could beat Cleo. If she knew I was coming, she's got mummy curses and mummy powers. Like, I feel like she's got some good long range attacks that she could use. Like, she's got her like whole swarm of scarab beetles. I would scream. I would scream and cry. Like, I like scarab beetles. I think they're really beautiful. But if like a whole horde of them was coming at me, no, that would not be good. So if she knew I was coming, I'd be out before it was even a chance. However, I do think that if I could get the element of surprise, I would be able to like grapple and shock her enough to like maybe not think to use any of her mummy powers or any curses or anything like that. Or I could defeat her before she had a chance. Again, is that likely? Maybe not. But I also feel like I would be able to sneak up on Cleo. Like, her monster powers don't really give her any extra senses as far as we've seen so far. Like, she doesn't have super good hearing or anything like that. So I feel like I could sneak up on her. And therefore, I feel like if I had to take one of the main cast on, I feel like I could maybe conquer Cleo. Next up, fifth place for this one is going to be Frankie. I don't think that Frankie would be an easy fight. I think that they would really give it their all. But I think I might have a chance if they like happen to glitch out or something. Frankie is obviously like made of a bunch of different parts and pieces. And so I feel like sometimes they can be slightly clumsy, or something like happens accidentally with like the mechanical parts of their body, or they have like a little brain moment where they kind of like go all fuzzy in the eyes and they're like having a memory. So I feel like if they're at their best, again, much like Cleo, I don't think I could take Frankie on because I'm sure one of their limbs is probably very good at like punching or kicking or otherwise hurting me. But I do think that Frankie has moments of disadvantage where I might be able to then take advantage of that and be able to beat them in a fight. This is so funny to say aloud. Like it's funny in my head, but saying it aloud to a camera is like so much funnier. I'm sitting here talking about beating up a fictional character. But anyway, I do think that there's a very slim chance I could best Frankie in a fight. And I'll go ahead and say from here on out, I don't think I could beat any of the others in any scenario, but it's really just like at this point, the degree to which they would destroy me. So with that being said, ushering into fourth place, we have Draculaura. Draculaura is a vampire and also a witch. And I feel like that just makes her low-key OP. Like that's too much. That's too much for me to conquer. I think the reason she doesn't go higher on the list is because vampires do have very concrete weaknesses. So like if I could somehow sneak some garlic in there, actually, you know what? Maybe I should have put Draculaura lower because I eat a lot of garlic. And not to the point where I'm like smelling all the time. Like I like to think that I smell pretty good. Like I'm not wafting garlic breath at you, but I could be for Draculaura is what I'm saying. Like I could just eat a shit ton of garlic and go up and like that might give me a little bit of an advantage. So I feel like she's slightly easier to beat out than the other characters that are higher up on this list because again, vampires, very concrete weaknesses that are like really not even just harmless but enjoyable for me. I love garlic, it's delicious. But then of course there's the whole like she's a vampire thing. She can turn into a bat, which is going to make her a lot harder for me to get my hands on her. And with her being a witch, again, much like Cleo, if she knows I'm coming, I'm done for. So I don't think I would beat Draculaura, but I think that like I'm more likely to beat her than the others. Next up is Claudine Wolfe, and I could not beat Claudine Wolfe in a fight. I know that. I know that wholeheartedly. I still think there are characters who would whoop my ass harder, though, so she's only at the third spot here. Claudine in the TV show is shown to have excellent senses. She can see really far and like smell things, and she can hear things. And with all of those extra senses plus her werewolf strength, there's absolutely no way I could surprise her, and absolutely no way I could overpower her. Like, there's just no world in which I can even get close to defeating Claudine Wolfe in a fight. But again, I think there are other monsters who would hit me harder, which brings us swiftly into the number 2 spot, which is Claude Wolfe, Claudine's brother, obviously. I think he's even more formidable than Claudine because he has all the same sort of powers as Claudine because they are both werewolves, but also he grew up in a different dimension, Behem, and actively fights monsters. Well, that's like a weird way to put it because like he's a monster, but he actively fights other creatures constantly. So like he not only has the better senses in every capacity, the werewolf strength, but also fighting prowess, which is something I am so far from having. So there's absolutely no way I would defeat either of the Wolf siblings in a fight. I think Claude would be even harder than Claudine. But the number 1 character that I know would defeat me in an instant is Laguna. Laguna is a very fierce monster in G3 of Monster High. She's like always chomping down on stuff. She loves getting in fights. She's extremely physically fit. She's on the basketball team and she also like swims everywhere. Like I know that girl is just X amount of pounds of pure rageful muscles and I would die instantly. The reason that she gets to be at the top is not only because of her ferocious nature, but also because she is shown in one of the G3 episodes to be able to sneak up on Claudine, which means that not only is she extremely strong and fast and fierce, but also she's sneaky. I could be sitting here and she could be coming up behind me right now, and I would never know, and that's terrifying. But like, it's true. There's just, out of all of these characters, I guess the reason that Laguna gets to be up top is because I think the other characters, not like, I don't mean this in a negative way to Laguna, like I don't hate her character or anything like that, but because she is so fierce and she's so ready to like attack at any moment, I feel like the other characters might at least hesitate to like go after me. Like they would definitely defend themselves if I came at them, but they might hesitate to come after me. Laguna would be like, oh, this person's thinking of fighting me. they're done. Like, that's it. Like, she would wreck me, and that's fine. I think she's wonderful for it. Like, good for her for being so strong. I'm not, but she sure is. Okay, that brings us to our next category, which is who would curse the most? Who has the foulest mouth at Monster High? So we're starting in sixth place, which is the person who I think would curse the least. And weirdly enough, that's Laguna. Laguna is a very like dynamic character, I think is probably a good word in G3 of Monster High, because she really has two sides. Like, she is fierce and strong and independent, but she's also soft and she wants to find love, and she does like have comfort items. So I feel like the softer side of Laguna just wouldn't really want to curse. I also think she's so strong and so like fierce a presence. Like, she really just has a strong presence that I don't feel like she would think she needs to curse. Like, she could. It's not that I think she is like, oh, curse words. No, I don't think any of them are like that. Like, if we're being honest, I don't really feel that way. But I just don't think that Laguna would feel like it's necessary. I don't think she would need to curse at people or use foul language to intimidate people. And I think the soft side of her would really like the idea of like having a clean mouth, so to speak. I don't, I feel like that's a whole other conversation we could get into, which is like how interesting it is how some words are considered bad, but like all words are just assigned a meaning and it's kind of arbitrary. Anyway, that's besides the point. I just feel like Laguna would think it would be so cutesy to not curse. And I feel like she would really lean into that. And I feel like she's just someone who would be like, yeah, like it doesn't bother me, but I don't really curse. Next up is going to be Draculaura, and I don't really think she would curse either, but for maybe different reasons. I think because we see that Dracula is a very understanding father, but also he can be kind of strict at times. He's not always the best at listening, and he is obviously quite old-fashioned in a lot of ways, and I feel like he would have raised his daughter not to curse. Like, I don't know why, I can't fully explain it, but I just get that vibe that he would be like Draculaura, that's not ladylike. And again, I think that's silly that like language should be different or like some words are more appropriate. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I don't think that curse words have a gender. Okay, I'll put it that way. Obviously, some words that are like closer to slurs than curse words, different. But I'm getting really off topic here. The whole point is that I think Dracula, because he can be sort of more old-fashioned, I think he would tell Draculaura it's not ladylike to curse. And I think she would come up with very, like, fun, punny ways to curse instead. Like, she would definitely be the person who, instead of being like, oh shit, is like, oh, rats, or even, oh, bats, because she's a vampire. I feel like she would always have almost curse words, but not like actually curse words. This is very niche, but if any of you are Mormon or know Mormon, I say Mormon specifically just because I have met people who have like a variety of faiths, and I've noticed this most with people I've met who are Mormon, and no shade to them, like they have been lovely people. But if you know any Mormons, you might hear them do this sort of thing where they'll be like frick instead of, you know, the actual F-bomb, which I also can't drop because I'll have to censor myself because of YouTube. But like, they'll do stuff like that. Like, they'll replace words with other words and almost curse, but like they're not actually cursing. I feel like that's what Draculaura would do. And I think it's honestly kind of a fun image of her like going about her potion room and she spills something and she like can't make herself curse because she's so used to not cursing, but she's like almost cursing the whole time. I think that's honestly quite cute. Then we have Claude, and I don't know how to explain this one, but I just don't feel like he would. I don't feel like he would curse. Maybe like every once in a while if he's like surprised, I think it might accidentally fly out of him. But he just seems like such a wholesome character. Like, he's just such a great guy, and that's not to say that you're not a great guy if you curse, because clearly I curse frequently. Like, I censor it here. In my real life, I do have a bit of a potty mouth. I don't know what it is about Claude, but I just don't feel like he would curse, or he would only curse in Behem curse words, so no one around him knows that he's cursing. So like, he is sitting there like a sailor, but everyone around him is like, why is he talking about cake? Like, that. I love that idea. That's such a funny concept to me, actually. Like, I still don't think he would be big on cursing, but that's genuinely funny. In third place, we have Cleo, who I do think would curse. I don't think that she would be above that, even though you could argue that she's like royalty, and so she like only uses proper words. I don't think that. I don't think that she would be like that. I think that Cleo, though, exclusively curses in like ancient Egyptian curses or very literal curses. I don't think she's going around saying like shit and hell and damn. I don't think that's what's happening. I think she's using ancient slang and ancient curses. And so much like how we just said with Claude, that would be funny if he was like giving Beheem curses all the time. I think that people around her have realized that Cleo is cursing, but I think they still don't fully understand because it's not in like modern English. She's not cursing in modern English. I do think she would find that beneath her. I think she would find modern English curses to be a bit too crass for her taste. And I think she would rather tell people to go like eat crocodile dung or something like that. Obviously, like there probably were not probably were. There definitely were actual ancient Egyptian curses. I didn't look them up for this video. I'm just saying I feel like she would be cursing in a way that is like not aligned with what we think of as cursing. People would know she's doing it, but like she'd be the only one who really understands the intensity of what she's saying. I am just now realizing I'm going to be filming for so long. This is going to be a very long video. So ushering into second place, we have Frankie. I feel like Frankie obviously wouldn't curse as much as my top pick, but I feel like they would curse a fair amount. And I feel like it would be just an extremely wide variety of curses. Like you've never met anyone almost who knows as many curses as Frankie. And I don't think it's intentional. I think it's because they have all of these like brain bits. Like they have how many? I feel like there's a canonical number. And I want to say it's like over 100. They have so many brain bits going on though, right? That are from different people. And we see in the show that Frankie sometimes has memories of these other people's lives. And I just feel like sometimes they would have a brain bit that's kind of a little bit more in charge, that is just cursing up a storm. I also feel like they would have curses from many different eras because of the different ages of their brain bits. And I also feel like Frankie would almost take is like a academic approach the right way to put it? I'm not 100% sure, but I do feel like Frankie would be someone who just feels like curses are other words. Like, yes, there are situations where they are more or less appropriate, but for the most part, it's not going to kill anyone if you say hell. It's going to be all right. And I feel like that's sort of the attitude that Frankie would have. So I feel like sometimes they would like rein it in. Sometimes they would just kind of be casually cursing. Sometimes they'd really be out of tear. Almost the most person-like, or at least I guess almost the most like me. I feel like I kind of curse on the same level as Frankie would, but I do think that Claudine would curse worse. Claudine would be like me on my bad days. Because here's the thing. Prior to coming to Monster High, Claudine was a weird kid. Claudine thought she was human, but was obsessed with monsters and knew everything about monsters and was like deep into this, almost not like a conspiracy theory, obviously, because like monsters were real and everything, and like being interested in monsters is not the same thing as being interested in conspiracy theories. But I just feel like she definitely interacted with some weird fucking people. And I feel like because of that, she learned some very interesting curses. I just feel like, again, no shade because this was me, okay? Like this was 100% me. But I feel like when you are in very niche topics and like you're around other people who are very invested in those very niche topics, like you're kind of with the freaks, and I say that as a positive thing. I love me freaks. I'm a freak, okay? Just to be clear, like that is a compliment coming from me. I think freaks are very fun. But I feel like freaks also have freaky mouths. And I feel like Claudine, through her years of being like ostracized by mainline society, and like having to kind of find the few friends she can on the fringes, and with her interest being so niche and so considered to be odd, I feel like Claudine would have been exposed to so many weird curses. And I feel like at first maybe she was like, oh, I don't like, okay, I don't want to do that. But over the years, she definitely got violently desensitized to it and is now just like cursing up a storm and doesn't even realize she's doing it. Like she just is cursing constantly. To me, I could see that happening. Like, obviously, none of this is canon, but I could imagine a world where that is the reality for Claudine. Alrighty, so our next category is not a like ranking category. It's just kind of like a random hypothetical. And that is which character is which queer stereotype. Now I need to be, I don't know, give like an extra disclaimer here. Um, I understand that these are stereotypes. I understand that like stereotypes can be harmful. I really was going for like fun ones, like ones that the community kind of leans into and it's like not such a bad thing. It's just kind of silly because I personally like that idea. Like I like little stereotypical jokes. I think it's funny. Like before I had, you know, two gender crises, me and my husband joked about how I was a bi girl and he was a gamer boy and like that's kind of a bisexual stereotype. And so that stuff I honestly I don't personally see the harm in little lighthearted stereotypes like that and I do think that they can be funny. So that's what I included here. I also know that not all of these characters are canonically queer within Monster High. We're just having fun, okay? I feel like I need to be so clear on that. We're just having fun. It's not serious. If it does bother you, I'm going to put chapters in this video, so feel free to just skip to the next section. You don't actually have to sit through this one if you think that it might irritate you. But I think it's funny, so we're doing it. So, gotta pull my notes back up. First off, we have Frankie. Frankie sits weird. Frankie is the queer person who never can just sit like this. Like I fall into the stereotype very much. So I'm sitting properly and I'm kind of having to fight to do it. Normally when I'm filming, I'm like cross-legged or I've got one leg up or something. When I'm sitting just casually and I'm not filming, I'm never sitting right. I'm always lounging in some way or my neck's in a weird position. And I've met other people who also fall into this stereotype or even people who aren't queer who do this. And it's just kind of how they are. And I feel like Frankie never ever can sit normal. I feel like part of it is just that they have a lot of thoughts happening perhaps at like different sorts of times since they're always kind of like moving around and fidgeting. I could see Frankie being kind of a fidgeter. And I also just feel like because their body is literally sewn together with different parts of people but then also like has mechanical aspects, I feel like they probably get uncomfortable fairly easily. Like perhaps they have to adjust their prosthetic leg or maybe like their stitches are pulling on one part so they got to sit differently. I feel like if I imagine Frankie in my head, I imagine them sitting not like a normal human being, and I love that for them. Next up, Draculaura. I think Draculaura is an iced coffee gay, and I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how to justify myself with that. There's just something about the vibe that she gives off that makes me feel like it would be perfectly normal for her to have an iced coffee in hand at literally any point in time. I feel like in class, it's on her desk. She can grab it. She's ready. I feel like when she's making her potions, it's like right there. Sometimes she accidentally pours it in and ruins the potion because she was like trying to grab an ingredient and she grabbed her iced coffee, or so much worse, goes to grab her iced coffee but accidentally grabs an ingredient and drinks that instead. I really easily can picture Draculaura always having some sort of like nice little iced beverage in her hands. I don't know why. Again, it's just vibes for this one, really. But I am standing by it. Okay. This next one, I feel like this stereotype is, at least as far as I've seen, has usually been more for like lesbians, but it could be more like broadly queer. Again, I don't know everything. However, I'm applying it to Claude. I think that Claude Wolf does not know when you're flirting with him. And I'm very guilty of this. I think me and my husband have told the story on here before. I can't remember when, but I think we have talked about at some point how we met and how both of us were kind of like, oh gosh, like, are we flirting or are we just friends? Like, it's kind of weird here. Like, both of us are really, really bad at knowing when someone is flirting with us. And I feel like the reason I think this is more of a stereotype within the lesbian community, or at least as far as I've seen of even just like women loving women in general, is the idea of like not being able to tell if it's just a platonic compliment or like romantic flirting, that sort of thing, or just being so baffled by the beauty of the lady before you that you like can't really tell what's going on because you're just like, pretty lady. I don't know. I feel like that would be Claude. I feel like if he is being flirted with, he is either completely unaware, he thinks we are just friends, like he doesn't know what's happening, and it's like a normal conversation to him, leaving the other person very confused and distressed. Or I think he is so baffled and he's just like, holy shit, someone's flirting with me. I don't really know what to do. Doesn't respond back. Those are the only two scenarios I can imagine for Claude. Like, I just, he just seems so silly and goofy and like so good hearted. But I just feel like he really truly would be so confused by the concept of flirting and like how to progress from normal talking to flirting to being in a relationship. I just really can see this one for him. I like I keep forgetting how funny some of these are. So for Cleo, I think that Cleo would be obsessed with RuPaul's Drag Race. And I need to clarify that I don't know that much about Drag Race. I don't know that much about drag in general, not because I think there's anything wrong with it, like I don't at all, but just it's not something that I personally am super interested in, so I just kind of know less. But I think Cleo would know everything. I think she would follow this show religiously. Like, it is so important to her to watch it as it airs live. Like, she's not waiting to watch it. She's not going to watch it after anyone else. She is one of the first people to see these episodes. She knows all of the queens' names and their backstories for every season. When a new season gets announced, she's doing like religious research on these queens if she doesn't already know who they are. She follows every drag queen conceivable on social media, just genuinely all of them, from like the most amateur to the most famous, just in case, because you never know when an amateur is going to become a very famous drag queen. And I also think that Cleo does it almost in like a rage watch sort of way. I think she genuinely would have her favorite drag queens and like the queens that she loves. But I also can't imagine her not watching and thinking, I could do it better. I feel like Cleo loves Drag Race so much, but in the back of her mind, part of the reason she loves it is because she just loves the idea of looking at these executions and being like, I could make that better, or I could do this dance better, or I could easily lip sync better. Or if all of those things are perfect, if like the costume, the wig, the makeup, if everything's perfect, I feel like she'd still be like, but it would look better on me. I is that a little toxic? Maybe, but it's just really funny for me to think about. And even aside from that, I don't know why. I just really feel like Cleo does seem to be a little bit more into social media than the other characters. And I feel like she would be really, really big into Drag Race. And again, following all the queens and everything and keeping up with everything. She would absolutely be live streaming her reactions to the show or like live tweeting or whatever the case may be, whatever's viable for her at that point. She's doing it. Like, she's in the TikTok live where she's watching and you're like seeing her react live to Drag Race. 10,000%. This one feels so concrete in my head. Like, I don't know why, but it just feels real. This one is a little bit random, and as with many on this particular category, is really just vibes alone. But I think Claudine would be obsessed with frogs. I don't know why, but like, I feel like everyone who knows a gay person knows a gay person who loves frogs. Sometimes it's bugs or mushrooms, but like, it's such a weirdly common thing in the community to love frogs. And I just feel like Claudine would. I feel like this would be very subtle, not all encompassing like Cleo's Drag Race obsession, but I feel like Claudine just would like frogs. Like, she'd have frog stuffed animals or like a frog keychain on her backpack, or she'd like doodle frogs in the margins of her homework and stuff. I I don't know why, because she has all the other animal print stuff that's going on. So like, frogs don't even match her aesthetic at all. I can just see her being very quietly obsessed with frogs, but also everyone still knows. Like, whenever she gets gifts, it's always frog themed. She's got frog notebooks, frog pens, frogs erasers. Like, I just genuinely feel like it would not be a huge part of her personality necessary. Again, it's not something like Cleo. Like, Cleo is going to talk about Drag Race until you walk away. Cleo is not going to leave you alone. She's going to talk about it, and she's going to keep talking after you leave because she doesn't really care 100%. Like, she loves an audience, but like, if she doesn't have one, she's still going to say her piece. Shit, I think I'm Cleo. Anyway, but I feel like Claudine wouldn't really bring attention to her love for frogs, but it would be there. It's always simmering in the background. Again, I don't know why. It's just the vibes. And then lastly, we have Laguna. And for Laguna's queer stereotype, I think she would be a U-hauler. So if you're not familiar, this is a like mostly lesbian term, and it's because a lot of like people in women loving women relationships tend to move very quickly. Obviously not everyone. It's a stereotype, like it's not every single person, but it is sometimes very, very true where it's like, oh yeah, we've been dating for 2 weeks, let's move in together. Or I like proposed on the third date or whatever. So they call it U-hauling or being a U-haul lesbian when it's like, oh yeah, immediately like first date is we go and grab the U-haul and we move in together, which is a little hyperbolic, but it's funny and like sometimes it's true. And again, I feel like this one is a relatively harmless stereotype. And I 100% believe that Laguna is a U-hauler, not only in my head, but because she is. Because the second she sees Gil, she's like, that's my future husband. I love him. We're going to be so happy together, but I have to find a good way for us to have a little meet cute. Like I have to impress him and it has to be perfect. Like she literally does this. This one isn't even up for debate. This is just how Laguna is because she is like a big romantic at heart. And I do love that aspect of her. I think it's very cute because I'm kind of the same way. I just like, she literally sees Gil and is like, that's my man forever until I die. Hasn't even said a word to him yet, but she is ready to commit, which is the definition of a U-Haul lesbian. Obviously, that's not a lesbian relationship, but apparently in this case, U-Hauling transcends gender of any type or sexuality of any type because Laguna is a U-Hauler, full stop. Okay, 2 more categories. This one does get an extra disclaimer because this category is, why are they getting canceled? If the Monster High characters are getting canceled, what's their crime? What have they done wrong? This could be fairly or unfairly canceled. We'll go through a couple of different categories here. This is another one that I really feel like I just need to add the disclaimer because it is just supposed to be jokes. It's just supposed to be funny. I understand that some of the things I'm going to talk about are relatively serious. We're not going to get like crazy. I'm not going to be like, oh, this person would touch kids. That's fucked up. That's not a joke. Some of the stuff is just like kind of silly, funny. Some of it's slightly more serious, but it's all in the context of a hypothetical. It is meant to be funny. It's not meant to like hurt any feelings or anything like that. So again, I would urge you, if like this doesn't seem like something that you're down for, just kind of skip this one because I fully understand that like most people who get canceled for a reason because they've done something horrific. I understand that. I'm just trying to like see the light side of it. So if that's not your vibe, that's chill. I'm not judging you, but like maybe just skip to the last little section here. But notes. Laguna. We're starting off with Laguna. Laguna is getting canceled for eating someone's pet. I don't think that she would do it intentionally, because I feel like she does have respect for especially her fellow monsters, and she does have her soft side. I don't think this would be an intentional act. I don't think that it would have any malice behind it. But also, Laguna is extremely fierce and does like to chomp on things and eat things. And I feel like she would eat someone's fish specifically because she's going to be like, oh, it's just another fish. It's just like my dinner. Like, I got it, fair and square. But I think it would accidentally be someone's pet. Like maybe it got out, or maybe like it's another water type monster. I don't know why I like couldn't think there for a second. And maybe they just like swam a little too far ahead of their fish friend in the lake or something, and Laguna ate it. I don't think it would be on purpose, but I do think there would be backlash because people would be like, holy shit, Laguna ate someone's pet. And she'd be like, no, I swear it was an accident. And they'd be like, how could this be an accident? Definitely would be a whole thing, but I really don't believe that Laguna would have had any malice behind it. I think, you know, she would offer not to replace the pet because that's not really a thing that you can do. Like a pet is a cherished companion, but I think that she would offer to try to make up for it in some sort of way. Like if there's anything she can do, I think she would absolutely apologize and be genuine for it. But I think Laguna would eat someone's pet and get canceled for it. This one I kind of alluded to earlier when I was talking about Claudine being with the weird kids. I think she would be a conspiracy theorist, and I think she would take it way too far and get canceled for it. Because, okay, I love me a conspiracy theory. I think they're very interesting to think about just as kind of another thought exercise. I love hearing crazy conspiracy theories. Sometimes I believe them, full stop. I'm not going to talk about which ones because this isn't about me. This is about Claudine. But I think Claudine would start light, right? Like it's very much like those iceberg videos. Claudine would start at the tip of the iceberg and be like, oh, that's kind of interesting and kind of weird. And like, here's a believable conspiracy theory. Like one that's like, oh shit, that actually might be real. Like this actually might be a cover up. And she goes a little deeper. She's like, okay, you know, like that one seemed plausible. So suddenly this one seems a little more plausible. And I think all of a sudden she's on TikTok ranting about, I guess like the reptilians wouldn't make sense in their world because they're like Deuce is literally a gorgon. He's got snakes on his head. A reptilian is not out of the question. But whatever the equivalent would be, I think that Claudine would go so far that one night after she's been up for 30 hours studying conspiracy theories, she gets on her TikTok live or whatever the monster equivalent is, and she's going to be sitting there like, the reptilians are like running a shadow government and everyone, we have to act now. I'm sorry, it's so funny to me. I think she could be snapped out of it. I think that after some sleep and after some talking to her friends that she would like come back to reality. I don't think she would stay in like the deepest depths of conspiracy. I think she would always be a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I do think there would be one night where she goes too far and she does it publicly. And I do think that she would have to apologize and be like, guys, listen, this is the situation. Like, I was not in my right mind. I was absolutely exhausted and running on 72 Red Bulls. Because, I mean, she's a werewolf. She might be able to handle 72 Red Bulls. So, again, I don't think this would be like a serious, like, I shouldn't say that. I don't think it would be the most serious thing ever. And I think she would apologize for it and kind of like rein it in a little bit. But I do think that I could see Claudine being a conspiracy theorist. This one's a little too real. I have to get through this. Okay, so for Cleo, I don't know, like how many of y'all will know what I'm referencing, but there's only one thing I can reference to explain this. I think that Cleo would be a little bit out of touch with the masses because she is royalty, and you know she does kind of have some sense of I'm better than everyone else a little bit there. Less so than in Gen 1, but like still there's a little bit of self-centeredness, right? And I feel like she would accidentally say something that is like violently out of touch and get canceled for it. And the comparison here, I can't say her last name. I'm going to try. I'm sorry in advance. But if any of you know of Michaela Noguera on TikTok, how a couple years back, I think it's been that long now, she made a video being like, oh, you guys should try being an influencer for a day. It's really hard. I spend like so much time in meetings and everything. Like I'm working my ass off from 9 to 5, just like you guys. And wasn't received well because my personal take on the situation, while I understand that there are going to be hardships in any sort of career, being an influencer is infinitely easier than so many careers. Again, not to say that it's not hard, not to say that like, you know, you have a lot of your public or like your information kind of out there, like that can be scary, or like the internet can be kind of a mean place. Like I'm not saying that there's not downsides to being an influencer, but also it's so much easier than most jobs. So that was like a very kind of out of touch comment to make to me personally. And I feel like I could see Cleo saying something similar. I feel like she just would make a comment like that where she doesn't necessarily have malice behind it, but she just lacks the context of what it's like to be a less privileged person. And so I feel like she would say something that is violently out of touch and she would get checked real quick in the comments. I do think that Cleo would initially have a bit of a hissy fit and be like, I'm not wrong. Like, fuck you. I'm not wrong, but I do think that she would come to understand. I feel like Frankie especially would be very helpful in this regard. I feel like Frankie, they would really calm Cleo down and be like, listen, I know you didn't mean this, but like it does look really bad and maybe you should reconsider. And I think that Cleo would be able to grow from the situation. And like permanently grow. I don't think it would just be like a farce. I think she actually would grow and learn from the situation, but I think there would be a decent amount of backlash for her, rightfully so. This one I think is like arguably the most offensive one, but like I really do mean it in just like a funny way. So please try to take it that way. But we have Claude. And I think Claude, stay with me, would get canceled for saying a slur because he grew up in a different dimension. He grew up in a world known as Behem, which is totally different from like the world that we know with Monster High. Everything's different there. There's different critters there. Time moves differently there, which is how even though he was born after Claudine, he's still her older sibling. Like Behem is a very, very different place, and words mean different things in Behem. So I think he would say something that is just a very, very normal word in Behem. Like I don't know any precise examples, but I'm just saying I think he would say something because it's normal there. And I think that he had grown up there. So why wouldn't he think that? And then I think he would say it, but in our world, it's like a very offensive term or it's a slur or something like that. So this would 100% not be intentional. Claude would never, ever say a slur on purpose. Ever. Like, he's just not that kind of guy. I cannot believe that from him. But I do think it would happen on accident. I think it would happen very unfortunately. But I do think it would happen. I just feel like that would be the sort of like horrible coincidence that this guy would end up having in his life. I think he would be able to quickly like make another video or post or whatever, like whatever the context is where he does this. I feel like he would very quickly be able to explain, and he would be so apologetic. Like he would be crying like genuine tears, not like, you know, the crocodile tears of like poor me, but I think he would be crying because he feels so bad that he hurt people's feelings, because again, I don't think he would ever want to on purpose. And I think he would be really genuine. He'd be like, guys, like, thank you for letting me know. I did not know this. This is like what it means where I'm from. And so I had no idea, but like, I'm never going to use that word again. Like, if there's any other words, like if there's like a good way for you to let me know, I don't want you to use the word, but also let me know, because I never want to have this problem again. Like, I never want to accidentally hurt people. That's the kind of thing I feel like would happen to Claude. So again, I understand that the use of slurs is a very serious issue. Like, that's why I'm not giving any examples here, because I'm not going to say it. I'm not like that. But I just think it would happen. And I think it would be an accident. And I think he would apologize and everything would blow over and it'd be fine. But I think there would be like a brief 1 to 2 day window where Claude Wolf gets canceled because he says a slur accidentally. So for Frankie, I do feel like this almost kind of sort of ties in with Claudine's, but because Frankie has so many of the brain bits, I feel like they would unintentionally remember something in the past. And I'm trying to, the example that I wrote down was like the JFK shooting. I don't know if that's too serious or like too offensive or whatever, but we're going to go with it. Okay. Again, I already gave my disclaimer. Y'all know I'm coming from this or at this from a good place. I feel like, for example, the JFK shooting, Frankie's brain bits, one of them would remember something about the JFK shooting that is not public knowledge, that kind of might tie into a conspiracy theory. And I feel like out of their sense of justice and feeling like they want to bring this to light because it's like not right what happened, I feel like they would say, hey, this is my brain bit. This is this person. This is what I've learned. And I feel like they would be canceled by people who either are actively hiding the truth, which I know like really ties into the conspiracy theory thing, or just by people who are like offended by that concept of truth. Like it's kind of like when something bad comes out, like if you have a favorite musician and something bad about them comes out where it's like, oh, they actually did this horrible thing to their like assistants or to women or God forbid to children or anything like that, where I think it's very normal to like not want to believe it. Obviously, like believing the victim is a big thing. Like I'm not saying you should disbelieve them, but I am saying I think it's very normal for there to be a moment of like, please, that can't be true, right? Where you don't want to believe it. Like you don't want that to be a thing that happened with someone that you believed to be a good person. And I feel like Frankie would get canceled by those sorts of people who don't want to believe the information that they're putting forth, who don't want to have to accept that, or the people who are hiding it. So I don't think Frankie would be rightly canceled. I think that they would be doing what they believe to be a good thing, but I just think that it would be very controversial, so it would end up getting them kind of canceled. And then lastly for this category, we have Draculaura, who I think would be canceled because she's a perfectionist. We do see this somewhat within the show where she really just strives to hold herself to such a high degree, and I feel like perhaps in a slightly different world of Monster High. I don't necessarily think this fits in like perfectly with the world that we do see, but go with me. It's a hypothetical. I feel like Draculaura could get canceled for being like difficult to work with on projects or something because of her perfectionism, because I do feel like it is, or it could be bordering on like toxic perfectionism, where it's not just like, oh, I really want to do good, but it's like, it has to be this way. It has to be perfect. And if it's not, it sucks and we're trashing it and we're starting over. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how tired you are. We're doing this until we get it right. I feel like that's the kind of vibe that Draculaura could get into in like a bad situation where she's really stressed or something like that. And I feel like she would get canceled for just being extremely difficult to work with and kind of just not fun to be around in like a more, I don't want to say professional setting because like I know they're in school, but like I just feel like that's the kind of vibe, right? Like maybe like once they've grown out of school, I feel like she would be canceled for that because people would come out and be like, man, I really like Draculaura as a person, but working with her sucks. I can't do it. And I feel like people would get a hold of that and then she would be canceled for it. And I do think that at first she would be like hurt and be like, it's not bad to be a perfectionist. Like, I just want to do my best. What's wrong with that? But I mean, this is kind of a common theme. I really don't think like any of these characters would be canceled and stand by what they did if it was something that they like actually did wrong. I feel like Draculaura would come around, her friends would help her, she would see the error of her ways and be like, okay, I understand that like I can handle this level of perfectionism within myself, but it's a lot to put on other people, and so I'll try to do better. I'll try to not do that. I feel like she would apologize, but I could see that happening. And we are on our last category. Finally, I have been filming for actually, let's find out. I have been filming for 53 minutes so far, and we still have one whole category left. So, hope y'all like the long ones. Anyway, this is the most likely to help me hide a body. So again, we're going to be going from sixth place to first place, sixth place being the person I think is least likely to help me hide a body, and then going up to the person I think is most likely to help me hide a body. So starting in sixth place, we have Claudine Wolfe. I just don't think that Claudine would do that. I feel like Claudine has a strong sense of right and wrong, and I feel like if I called her up and said, "Hey girl, so this happened. You want to help me bury somebody?" She's very capable, obviously. Like physically she could do it, but I just don't think she would do it. I don't think that she would be able to. I think that she would want to ask questions and be like, "Why did this happen? What happened? What's going on?" I think that she would feel like we need to like call in some sort of authority figure. I'm imagining the police in Monster High are like better than the police in real life. So I feel like she'd be like, no, we need to call the police. Like we need to get this figured out. Or if it was just fully on purpose, like that's kind of more of like a, oh, this accidentally happened kind of scenario. If it was actively on purpose and I like killed someone in cold blood, Claudine would not be my friend anymore. Claudine would be like, no, girl, that's not okay. Like you can't act like that. So I can't imagine Claudine being down to hide a body. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe y'all will like try to convince me otherwise in the comments, but I feel like she would do so many things for her friends. And I feel like she would want to try to help you out of that situation if it were like an accident or self-defense or anything like that. But I feel like she would not push it under the rug. She'd be like, no, we need to deal with this properly. Next up, we have Frankie. I also don't think that Frankie would help you hide a body. I think that Frankie, much like Claudine, is just a really good soul. I think that they would actively come over and like see what's going on and be like, okay, let's try to figure this out and try to help. But I just don't think that they could, in good conscience, help me bury evidence. That's really what it comes down to. I really truly don't think that they have it in them. I think that they're too good-hearted. And again, like I talked about the sense of justice earlier, and I don't think that they would be able to keep that secret. We also have seen that Frankie does have trouble kind of holding their emotions in. Like that's very difficult for them. And so I imagine that maybe it's kind of the same thing with like a really big, deep, dark secret. I feel like this is the sort of thing where even if I was able to manage to convince Frankie to bury a body with me, they would stew on it and it would be all they would be able to think about. They'd be electrifying things all over the place because they're just so frazzled. And I think it would eventually just burst out of their mouth. They'd be like, I helped Rain hide a body. And then it would be a whole thing and they'd be so sad. I don't think they have it in them to help me hide a body. Is this I'm thinking about like the ad page when you like go to upload a YouTube video and I'm like, is this one gonna get me demonetized? I don't think so, but oh well. Next up we have Cleo. I don't think that Cleo would ask as many questions, and I do think that she would see a lot more of a moral gray area when it comes to killing people. That's so wild to say. I don't know. I feel like I could Imagine that. I feel like Cleo has a longer list of plausible reasons to need to hide a body than like Frankie. But I don't think that Cleo would want to help because I don't think that she would want to get her hands dirty. I think that I would call Cleo and say, hey, I kind of killed this guy. I don't think, no, that's a lie. I think she would ask all of the questions because she wants the gossip. She wants to know the juicy details. Why'd you kill him? What happened? Was there a good reason? Are you just mad? Are you like gonna do this again? Like what's going on? Like she would want to know everything. And I would tell her because like I'd be trying to convince her to help me hide the body. And then at the end of the conversation, I'd be like, so are you going to help me? And she'd be like, maybe you should call X character instead. Cause like I just got my nails done and I'm not holding a shovel. Like, like Cleo psychologically would be down to help you hide a body, but physically, absolutely not. She's not doing that heavy lifting. She'll call someone else for you, even maybe. I don't want to like name names because, like, obviously we're going up on the list, but like, she's not going to do it herself. There's absolutely no way. Next up, we have Claude. And this might seem like it is at odds with the way that I've described his character previously because I've talked a lot about how I think Claude is a great guy. I think he's a really chill, kind character. I think that he wouldn't even conceive of me having, you know, created a body for untoward reasons. I think that I would call him up. I think that you would say, hey, I have a body, I need to hide it. And he would just assume something terrible happened. He'd be like, oh my gosh, like they must have hurt you. It must have been in self-defense. Absolutely. I'm here for you. Because I think that he would just believe the best of his friends. And so in this scenario, I'm like, whoever's calling is a friend, right? Yeah, I don't think that would even cross his mind that it could have been in cold blood. I don't think he would ever even imagine that. And so I think he would automatically help you because he would think that he's doing the right thing. He would think that it was an act of self-defense and this guy had it coming and he doesn't want you to get in trouble for defending yourself. And so he is there. He is there in an instant to help you hide the body. Next up is Draculaura, which I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I feel like she would help you. I think she might have more questions than Claude, but I think that she could be persuaded fairly easily, especially because I'm not trying to equate these two things, okay? But like, she's also doing something that is illegal in the monster world, right? Like, she's doing witchcraft and she has to hide it. And so I think that she understands that sometimes there is nuance with things and sometimes right and wrong are not as black and white as we would like for those concepts to be. And so I think that most reasons to need to hide a body, you could convince her of. I feel like you could. I feel like if you're given long enough of a time, I feel like you could bring Draculaura around to your side. And then I feel like she would help you because she has magic. So it's not difficult. I think that she would honestly be a great ally and try to hide a body because she could just like make it invisible or disguise it as something else and then just like get it in the ground real quick. There's no digging time. It's Draculaura. She's a witch and a vampire. Like, it's going to be so quick and so easy. No mess, no fuss, no cleanup. So it might take some convincing. But I feel like Draculaura not only would help you hide a body, but also would be really, really good at helping you hide a body. And then our first place goes to Laguna. And I don't mean that in the way that it might come across, because yes, she is fierce and murderous in her own right. So I do feel like in some sense, there is that, but that's not even like the main way that I mean it. Because like, yes, that is at play. Okay, that kind of appeals to her rougher side is I honestly think Laguna's been the person calling other people being like, yo, I gotta hide a body, help me. So I feel like, of course, she's going to reciprocate. She's going to be like, yep, been there, done that. I understand. It happens to the best of us. Let's go. Come on, bestie. We can do this. But I also think that she would do it because it's exciting and dramatic, right? Like, I feel like for Laguna, who, I mean, mostly she does love romance. Like, I understand that that's like her big thing, but she loves stories and like telenovelas, and she loves the drama of it all, right? And I feel like she would be unable to resist the drama of getting that phone call. Like, that's a crazy thing to actually have happen to you, right? To have a friend call and be like, hey, I have a body, help me. And I feel like Laguna would be like, oh, this only happens on TV. This only happens in my books and my comics. I can't believe this is happening to me in real life. Of course, I'm going to help you hide a body. Let's go. Because, like, if she says no, the adventure's over. Like, that's it. It's over and done with. You have to hang up the phone and say, hey, please don't tell anyone. I'm going to go call this person now. Like, that's it. And I don't think that she would be able to be satisfied with that. She needs to be part of the story because this is something crazy and interesting. And I don't think that Laguna would be willing to miss out on that. I think that on every level, she would be willing to help you hide a body. And arguably, I think that she might even be eager for it because it is so interesting and so taboo and horrifying and like, oh, what might happen next? And there could be a sordid love story in there somewhere. Laguna would help you hide a body. That's all I can say. That's my final thoughts. Laguna's the one to call if you need some assistance with some certain disposals. Laguna's your girl. This is such a silly video. Whew. That's it. That took so much longer than I thought it would, but that was so much fun. I love these. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I love watching Haley Whipjack's versions of these for Baldur's Gate. I love doing like this sort of thought exercise with my husband just for fun, and doing it now with like doll characters, Monster High characters. This is like, not that, okay, every single video I film is fun, okay? Like I genuinely love doing this. It is so fun to me. Like, I mean, I get emotional quite frequently about how grateful I am that I get to be here and get to do this, and it's so fun. This is the most fun I've had filming a video, maybe all month. Like, not because the other videos were not fun, but just because this is so top tier to me. So I really hope you guys did have fun as well. If you did, please sound out in the comments, first of all, with any of your thoughts on these hypotheticals that we went over today, your thoughts on my thoughts on the characters, but also let me know if you want to have more. If you want me to do another video like this, 10,000% I will. I did promise someone that if y'all like this, I'm going to do the next one with Tony, with my husband. And he's chaotic and needs to be censored all the time and also doesn't know the characters of Monster High. So it would be a hoot and a holler to have him on. So please do let me know if you enjoyed this, if you want to see more, because quite frankly, I'm desperate to do it. I would love so much to get to do another one of these, or 2 more of these, or 3 more. Like, I could never stop. So if you want more, please do let me know. If you have any ideas for hypotheticals, let me know in the comments as well. But yeah, that's been a lot of me talking your ear off. Hope you had fun. I'm going to stop now. So I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.